Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have taken the next work and name is Robert Frost. He is the greatest American poet and let's start that about him. Robert Frost I will I will be told about first of all full name Robert Lee Frost, okay, and he was born March 26, 1874, and he was died January 29, 1963. Okay, was an American poet known for his realistic depiction of a rural life and his command of a American colloquial speech. Frost frequently wrote about the setting from a rural life in New England in the early 20th century, using them to examine the complex social and philosophical theme. Frequently honored during his lifetime, Frost is the only poet to receive for a Pulitzer Prize for poetry. He became one of the American rares. We can say that American rares public literary figures, almost artistic institution, appointment United States Poet Laureate in 1958. He also received the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960s, and in 1961 was a named Poet Laureate of a Belmont. Randall Jarrell wrote Robert Frost, along with the Stevens and Eliot, seems to be the greatest of the American poets of this century. Frost's virtues are extraordinary. No other living poet has written so well about the action of an ordinary man. His wonderful dramatic monologues are dramatic scene come out of a knowledge of a people that few poets have had, and they are written in a verse that uses sometime with the absolute mastery the rhythm of a actual speech. In his 1939 essay The Figure, a poem mistake, Frost explained his poetics. No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader, no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader. For me, the essential delight is in the surprise of remembering something I didn't know. I knew poetry must be revelation or series of revelations for the poet as for the reader. For it to be that there must have been the greatest freedom of a material to move about in it and to establish a relation in it regardless of a time and space, previous relation and everything but affinity. So let's start to about the that is the just introduction of the Robert Frost. So now I will take the biography. Robert Frost was born in San Francisco to journalist William Prescott Frost Jr. Isabel Moody. His father was a descendant of Nicholas Frost of a Tiverton, Devon, England, who had sailed to New Hampshire, Hampshire in 1634 on the Wolf Runner, and his mother was a Scottish immigrant. Frost was also descendant of a Samuel Appleton, one of the early English settlers of a Ipswich, Manchester's. Andrew Jazz Phillips, one of early English settlers of a Watertown, Massachusetts. Frost's father was a teacher and later an editor of a San Francisco Evening Bulletin, which later merged with the San Francisco Examiner, and unsuccessful candidate for a city tax collector. After his death on May 5th, 1885, the family moved across the country to Lawrence, Massachusetts, under the patronage of Robert's grandfather William Frost Sr., who was an overseer at New England Mill. Frost graduated from the Lawrence High School in 1892, where he published his first poem in a high school magazine. Served as a class poet, and with his future wife Eleanor White was a co-valedictorian. Frost's mother joined the Swedenborgian church and had him baptized in it, but he left as an adult. Although known for his later association with rural life, Frost grew up in the city. He attended the Dartmouth College for 2 months, long enough to be accepted into the uh, Delta Chi fraternity. Frost returned home to teach and to work at various jobs, helping his mother teach her class of unruly boys, delivering newspaper and working in a factory maintaining carbon arc lamps. He said that he didn't enjoy this job, feeling that his true calling was to write a poetry. In 1894, he sold his first poem, My Butterfly, an elegy, published in November 8, 1894, edition of the Independent of New York for $15. Proud of his accomplishment, he proposed a marriage to Eleanor Mariam White, but she demurred, wanting to finish the college at St. Lawrence University before they married. Frost then went in excursions to the Great Dismal Swamp in Virginia and asked Eleanor again upon his return. Having graduated, as she agreed, and they were married in Lawrence, Manchester on December 19, 1895. Frost attended Harvard University from the 1897 to 1899, but he left voluntarily due to illness. Shortly before his death, Frost's grandfather purchased a farm for Robert and Eleanor in Derry, New Hampshire. Frost worked at the farm for 9 years while writing early in the morning and producing the many of the poems that would later become famous. Ultimately, his farming proved unsuccessful, and he returned to the field of education as an English teacher at New Hampshire's Pinkerton Academy from 1906 to 1911. Then at the New Hampshire Normal School, now we can say in the Plymouth, New Hampshire. In 1912, Frost sailed with his family to Great Britain, settling first in Beaconsfield, a small town in Buckinghamshire outside London. His first book of poetry, A Boy's Will, was published the next year, and in England he made some important acquaintances, including Edward Thomas, a member of the group known as the Dymock Poets, and Frost inspired for the road not taken T. Hum and Ezra Pound, although Pound would become the first American to write a favorable review of the Frost work. Frost later resented Pound's attempts to manipulate his American parody. Frost befriended many contemporary poets in England, especially after his first two poetry volumes were published in London in 1930, A Boy's Will, and in 1914, North of Boston. In 1915, during World War I, Frost returned to America, where he holds American edition of A Boy's Will had recently been published, and bought a farm in Frankenia, New Hampshire, where he launched a career of writing, teaching, and lecturing. This family homestead served as the Frost summer home until 1938. It is maintained today as a Frost Place, a museum and poetry conferences site. He was made an honorary member of a Phi Beta Kappa at Harvard in 1916. During the year 1970 to 20, 1923 to 25, on more informal basis 1926 to 1938 in Manchester, notably encouraging his students to account for myriad sounds and intonations of the spoken English language in their writing, and he called his colloquial approach to language the sound of sense. He won the first of a four Pulitzer Prizes for A New Hampshire, a poem with the Notes and Grace Notes 1923. He would win the Pulitzer Prize collected poem 1930 and for the range 1936 and last is a Witness Tree 1942. From the 1921 to 1962, Frost spent almost every summer and fall teaching at the Breedloaf School of English of Middlebury College at its mountain campus at the Ripton Belmont, and is accredited with the being a major influence upon the development of the school and its writing programs. The college now owns and maintains is a former Repton Farmstead National Historic Landmark near the Breadloaf campus. In 1921, Frost accepted a fellowship teaching post at the University of Michigan and Arbor, where he resided until 1927, when he returned to the teach at Amherst. While teaching at the University of Michigan, he was awarded a lifetime appointment at the university as a fellow in letters. The Robert Frost and Arbor home was purchased by the Henry Ford Museum in the Dearborn, Michigan, and relocated to the museum's Greenfield village site for a public tours. Throughout the 1920s, Frost also lived in his colonial era house in Shaftesbury, Belmont. In 2002, the house was opened to the public as a Robert Frost Stone House Museum and was given to Bennington College in 2017. In 1934, Frost began to spend winter months in Florida. In March 1935, he gave a talk of the University of Miami. In 1940, he bought a 5-acre plot in the South Miami and Florida, naming up it Pencil Pines. He spent his winters there for the rest of his life. In a memoir about Frost's time in Florida, Helen Muir writes Frost had called his 5 acres Pencil Pines because he said he had never made a penny from anything that did not involve the use of a pencil. His properties also included a house on a Brewster Street in Cambridge, Manchester. Frost was appointed a United States Poet Laureate in 1958 by Librarian of Congress Lawrence Quincy Mulford, serving for a year until succeeded by Richard Eberhard. He was 86 when he performed a reading at the inauguration of John F. Kennedy on January 20, 1961. Frost began by attempting to read his poem Dedication, which he had composed for the occasion, but due to the brightness of the sunlight, he was unable to see the text, so he recited the gift outright for a memory instead. In the summer of 1962, he accompanied Interior Secretary Stewart Odell on a visit to the Soviet Union in hopes for meeting Nikita Khrushchev to lobby for peaceful relations between the two Cold War powers. In the early hours of January 29, 1963, Frost died at Peter Bent Brigham Hospital in Boston at the age of 88. He was buried in the old Bennington Cemetery in Bennington, Vermont. His epitaph from his last line of his poem, The Lesson for Today, 1942, is I had a lover's quarrel with the world. Frost's personal life was plagued by grief and loss. In 1885, when he was 11, his father died of tuberculosis, leaving the family with just $8. Frost's mother died of cancer in 1900. In 1920, he had committed his younger sister Jenny to mental hospital, where she died 9 years later. Mental illness apparently ran in a Frost family, as both he and his mother suffered from the depression, and his daughter Irma Emma was committed to mental hospital in 1947. Frost's wife Eleanor also experienced bouts of a depression. Eleanor and Robert Frost had 6 children: son Elliot, daughter Leslie Frost Ballantine, son Carol, daughter Irma, daughter Mary Jory, and died as a result of a fever, just like it's a type of the fever. So they have suffered from this. Okay, so then after I will talk about the work. Next topic is work. It means that talk we will talk about style and critical deception. Randall Jarrell's influence essay on a Frost include Robert Frost Home Burial 1962, extended a close reading of that particular poem, and to the Laodiceans 1952, in which Jarrell defended Frost against the critics who had accused Frost of being too traditional and out of touch with the modernist poetry. Jarrell wrote the regular ways of looking at the Frost poetry are grotesque and simplifications and distortions and falsifications. Coming to know his poetry well ought to be enough in itself to dispel any of them, to make up plain the necessity of finding some other way of talking about his work. Jarrell's close reading of a poem like neither out too far nor to lead readers and critics to perceive more of the complexities in our Frost poetry. I think it's not important. Okay, I will talk about that the theme. In a contemplative criticism, the editors state that Robert Frost's best work explore the fundamental questions of existence, dipping with the chilling starkness, the loneliness of the individual in a different universe. The critic T.K. Whipple focused on a bleakness in a Frost work, stating that in much of his work, particularly north of Boston, is a harsh set book. Is emphasized the dark background of a life in a rural New England, with its degeneration of often sinking into total madness. And that's it. I think it's not very important. Then I will let's talk about the award. Frost was nominated by Nobel Prizes in literature in 31 times. Okay, and Howard in 1965 preliminary directory notes that Frost received honorary degree there, and although he never graduated from the college, Frost received over 40 honorary degrees, including from the Princeton, Oxford, and Cambridge University. Became the only person to have received 2 honorary degrees from the Dartmouth College. And during his lifetime, Robert Frost Middle School in Fairfax, Virginia, Robert L. Frost School in Lawrence and Manchester, and the main library of Amherst College were named after him. In 1960, Frost was awarded a United States Congressional Gold Medal. Already I have a talk about this. In a 90 in Pulitzer Prize, I will talk about the 1924 and Hampshire, a poem with the notes of a great notes. In 1930, collected poems. 1937, a further range, and 1943, witness tree. Okay, and I will. That's it. Okay, no important. And I will talk about the selected work. Poetry collection 1930, a boy's will. 1940, north of a Boston. In a north of a Boston, there is the poem after apple picking. First poem in have a collection of the north of Boston. Second, death of the hired man, and third, mending wall. In 1960, mountain interval, there is a 4 poems: birches, out, the oven board, and the road not taken. Next, 1923 selected poems, the New York runway, as include poem from the first 3 volumes. 1923, New Hampshire, in this new hemisphere, fire and ice, nothing gold can stay, stoop by woods on a snowy evening. That is the collection poem name. And 1924 several short poems, New York Hall. 1928 are selected poems, and 1920 West Running Brook, Acquainted with the Night. 1929 The Lovely Selby Choosers. 1930 collected poems, Robert Frost. And 1933 The Lone Striker. 1934 selected poem, this is the third edition. And 1936 I will talk about the For the Ranch. This is very important. And I will talk about the 1942. This is also collection of this poem, A Witness Tree. There is a given a three poem, The Gift Outright, Question, and Silken Ten. Next 1962 In the Clearing. This is the also work, and I will talk about the very famous play. One play I will talk about. In he has written he had written 1945, A Mask for Reason. That's very famous. And letters, it's too much there, so I think I didn't read of this because not it's a very important. And I just want to one lecture I will also will be given for the detail of the works, because sometimes I have a come to in the exam, that's why very important. Okay, so thank you so much for joining my YouTube channel, and I hope you will be support and you will be shared definitely. Okay, thank you so much.